This is a blade of chaos from God of War, and I made 2 of them. Not only did I make them, but I also put them to the test, testing them on things like an apple, cans, and a coconut. If you want to see how these hold up, you'll have to wait to the end of the video, because first I need to make them. To start, I sketched the blades of chaos to the best of my ability on a piece of A3 paper. Once I'd outlined that, I cut it out and traced it onto a sheet of steel I had. Then off camera, I cut the steel to a more manageable piece so I could actually get to work. And I could cut out the rough shape of the blades. And once I had the first piece out, I realized how deadly this was going to be when it's done. This thing is heavy and it could already do some real damage. Anyway, I went and got out the other piece and it was time to actually do the finer details and carve out that truly iconic silhouette. I stuck with the cutting disc for now, clearing away any of the large pieces and opening up the hook section in the blades. Once the rough shape was done, I switched over to a sanding disc. This is where I really refined that edge, getting the fine details. Now the blades aren't sharp yet, and I won't sharpen them for quite a while. Even at this stage, they're already doing a tiny bit of damage. I mean, look what they did to this wood. I'm really excited to see how they're going to do when it's done. But that's all we can really do with the metal for now. We're going to put them aside and we're going to move on to the handles. So in the game, the handle seems to be made out of metal, but I'm going to make mine out of wood for a few reasons, such as the dark wood is really going to give it a Nordic vibe. Also because I just have no idea how to make it out of metal. Plus, I feel like wood will look quite cool. I cut it out and drew this cool design, but then I realized I actually need to cut something first, so I drew over the design and then cut over it. All that drawing for nothing. While we're talking about the design of the handle, there are so many different types, so I just went with this one. I don't know if this is the best one to go with, there were just too many to choose from. Here I'm carving out a space for the blade to slot into the handle. I only need to do this on 2 of the pieces that I cut out, by the way I cut out 4 earlier. I used a router to cut the channel, and once that was done, I switched back to the jigsaw to shape the handle itself. Just like the blade, it's a peculiar shape, but after some careful cutting, I got it right. Now I just need to repeat the process 3 more times. Oh, and on one piece I actually cut it a little bit too short, so when I'm done I'll have to glue an extra piece back on. Off camera, I cut all these out. This took way too long. It actually took like an hour. But I realized I made a small mistake. You see this slope piece, it's facing the wrong way. It needs to be angled the other way. Right now it slopes into the blade, while it needs to slope away from it. But this is a really easy fix. All I gotta do is cut it. So I quickly did it on all 4 of them, and we were good to go on to the next step, which is hollowing out the center. To cut the hole, I drew away as much material as I could before switching over to the saw and finishing it off. Of course, everything I do on one piece of the handle, I need to repeat on all 4. So it was back to the drill and then to the saw again. These holes weren't very clean, but that's okay. When we glue all the pieces together, then we can make them really look good. While I had the drill out, I also put a few holes in the ends of the metal, and then cleaned that up with the saw, and it kind of made it look like a bottle opener. But I promise you it's not for that, it's for a chain, and that's for later on. The chain will be the last thing we do, as I don't want it getting in the way throughout the rest of the build. Anyway, back to the handle. Right now the handle isn't very handle shaped, so to fix that I got out the sanding disc on the grinder and started reshaping the grip. I'll do a better job of this later when all the pieces are together. Speaking of which, it's time to do just that. I drilled a hole into the metal and onto the handle. I'm going to be using pegs to put the handle together. I cut 4 rods all about the same length and made sure all the holes lined up. These pegs pretty much just act as a wedge. By hammering them in, the handle won't be able to fall off. In theory, the handle should be attached permanently to the blade. So I went and got the hammer and started hammering them in. Well, at first I used this block of wood because I was afraid of cracking the handle. I accidentally hit my finger. I also added a little bit of wood glue, spread it around just to make it a little bit stronger. I hammered the rods all the way in until they got to the other side. I also glued that extra piece of wood on the piece that was missing that I mentioned earlier. Now, one of the rods wasn't going in, so to fix this I drilled the hole a tiny bit bigger and it fit perfectly. I then got the grinder out again and cleaned up the pegs, as they were sticking at the ends just a tiny bit, but I wanted them to be flush with the handle. Once that was all done, we could actually start on the fine details of the blade. Starting with the hole in the middle, I used the router to carve out any bits I missed with the saw earlier, then sanded it to make it smooth and clean it up, before switching to a cutting tip and carving the lines into the handle to make it match the design from the game. After another final sand down, including the bottle opener looking part, I still wasn't happy with how it looked, since this part was a little bit too square and I still needed to clean up the other side. I grabbed out the grinder again and refined it even further. With the handle finished, it was time to focus on the blade itself. For the blade, there are 2 things I still need to do. 1, sharpen it, and 2, engrave it. But we're going to break it down into 3 steps. Step 1 is to give it a light sharpening. I'm not getting the razor sharp edge yet, that's going to be done later after the engraving. I'm doing this part now so I don't rub off any engraving later on, and so I know how far I can engrave up to. Now, while you watch me finish the sharpening and the engraving, if you guys are enjoying the content, leave a like and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Oh, and if you guys want to support the channel even more, I've got a Patreon. Right now there's not much content on there, but soon there'll be more. If you guys want to support the channel, you can chuck a follow there. Anyway, back to the build. The engraving took forever. I had to do 2 sides on each blade. My hands were begging for forgiveness by the end. And once I was done, it was just time to give it that razor sharp edge. So I got out the whetstone, put a little machine oil on it and started sharpening it. I'm not the best at sharpening, and also I realized it was going to take forever doing it like this. So I picked up the whetstone and just started rubbing the whetstone onto the blade. Since the blade was so big and heavy, it was easier to do it this way. With the blades nice and sharp, I cleaned off the dirty oil and reapplied a clean coat. This will protect it from rusting. It also makes the metal look cleaner and makes the engravings pop out more. I also got out some linseed oil and rubbed it onto the wood. This will protect the wood from moisture and make it last longer. The oil also makes it look darker, giving it that more Nordic vibe I mentioned earlier. But it will need to sit overnight. While that cures, I got out some chain and marked where I wanted the ends to be. I cut the chain into 2 smaller links and then attached them to the ends of the blades of chaos. Now, since I don't know how to weld, I'll just be using these connectors. And with that, the build was done. They are finally done. Now, I did switch to the other bit of the chain that I didn't cut because I thought it looked better. Speaking of looks, what do you guys think? Did I do a good job? I think I did a good job on the engraving, but I feel like I could have done a little bit better on the handle. Let me know in the comments below. I love how the metal turned out and how dark it is, and the contrast between the engraved parts and the not engraved parts. It also has a good weight behind the weapon, and I'm really excited to swing this thing. Anyway, let's get to the real deal. Let's test it. I have 3 things to test it on. Last time I tested something on a coconut, it destroyed it. Who knows, maybe the Blades of Chaos will hold up better. Starting with the apple, at first I hit the table more than anything, but this was light work for the blade. With no effort, I cut the apple like it was butter. If you're wondering why I didn't smash down super hard, it's because I didn't want to break the table and I didn't want the apple going flying everywhere. I also had another apple, so I thought I'd throw it up in the air and swing at it, and well, it also had no problem cutting it. I don't know what I was expecting, the blade was obviously going to destroy them, so let's move on to something a lot harder, but it's still cool to see how easy it was. Anyway, moving on to the cans of Coke. I was worried that I'd accidentally swing and hit the brick, so I swung with little effort, and it barely touched the can. It still opened it, but because it had already opened, it wasn't going to explode. Since it wasn't going to explode, I smashed it with the blade until it was no more. It's annoying that the can didn't explode first try, but it's just because I was too scared of breaking the blades on the bricks. I'm sure the blades would have been fine if they did. Now, luckily I still had another can, so I set that up and swung at it again. This time with way more force and it completely exploded. And for the final test, it's the coconut. Just a reminder what happened last time. Now let's see if we can finally destroy this coconut that's been sitting in my room for a month. First shot hit the very edge and it just grazed it, but the second shot, it did a massive crack. Now at first, I thought it hadn't gone all the way through, but when I set up the camera for the next angle, I realized it was leaking water everywhere. And on the next swing, it completely cut it open. I finally got my revenge on the coconut from that other build. Anyway, to make sure that coconut was destroyed, I proceeded to hit it a few more times. I completely desecrated the thing to confirm that the Blades of Chaos work. After all the abuse I put them through, they were still sharp and ready to keep swinging. This is definitely one of my more durable builds. These things were an awesome build, I really love them, and they're one of the coolest looking builds I've done. If you guys have any ideas of other things I should build or do, let me know in the comments. I have some really cool projects coming up, so stay tuned for them. And if you like this video, maybe go check out one of my other ones. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.